Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, let me tell you something that genuinely unsettled me last month. My doctor mentioned my cholesterol numbers looked fine, said, "See you next year," and sent me on my way. And I walked out feeling great. But then I started digging, and I thought, wait, is cholesterol even the whole story?
Right, here's what I've learned. It might not be. And that's actually the thing most people don't hear in a standard checkup. There's a measurement called pulse wave velocity, and some researchers now consider it a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than LDL cholesterol alone.
Which sounds incredibly technical, but I promise we're going to make it make sense today. Because if your arteries are quietly stiffening and nobody's checking, that's a problem worth knowing about.
Exactly, and the good news is some of this is genuinely reversible. So let's dig in.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. When we talk about arterial stiffness, what are we actually talking about? Like, what's happening inside the body?
So think of your arteries as rubber hoses. When you're young, they're flexible, they stretch with every heartbeat, they absorb the pressure wave. As we age, or as certain lifestyle factors accumulate, they become more like garden hose left in the sun for 10 years. Rigid, brittle.
Oh, that image is very unhelpful and also very helpful at the same time.
Ha, yes, accurate though. And pulse wave velocity, or PWV, is simply the speed at which that pressure wave travels through your arteries. The stiffer the artery, the faster the wave, and a faster wave means higher cardiovascular risk.
So it's almost like a speedometer for how hard your heart is working against its own pipes?
That's a genuinely good analogy. And the landmark research here comes from a 2010 meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. The authors, led by Willem Hansen and colleagues, found that for every 10 meters per second increase in aortic pulse wave velocity, cardiovascular risk increased significantly, even after adjusting for traditional risk factors.
Including cholesterol.
Including cholesterol, yes.
Here's the thing, though. I'd never heard this term before I started researching this episode, and I consider myself a reasonably informed person. So why isn't this more mainstream?
Partly because cholesterol testing is cheap, universally standardized, and has decades of pharmaceutical infrastructure behind it. PWV measurement requires specific equipment, an applanation tonometry device or an oscillometric cuff system, and it's not yet routine in most GP surgeries or primary care offices.
So it's not that the science is new, it's that the system hasn't caught up.
Precisely. Dr. Stéphane Laurent at the Hôpital Européen Georges Pompidou in Paris has been publishing on this for over 2 decades. The European Society of Hypertension formally recognized aortic PWV as the gold standard for arterial stiffness assessment back in 2007.
So Europe is ahead on this one?
In terms of clinical recognition, somewhat, yes. Though it's still not universally implemented even there.
Okay, let's talk about who this really matters for. Because I think our listeners, especially those of us in our 40s, 50s, and beyond, need to hear this personally.
Right. So the research is quite clear that arterial stiffening accelerates with age, but it's not purely an age story. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the most cited cardiovascular longitudinal studies in history, found meaningful associations between arterial stiffness and factors like blood pressure, blood sugar, inflammation, and sedentary behavior, things that are modifiable.
And for the sandwich generation folks, the people caring for aging parents while also raising kids, stress is a massive factor here, right?
It is. Chronic psychological stress is associated with elevated cortisol, which over time contributes to vascular inflammation and endothelial dysfunction. That's the lining of the artery losing its ability to regulate tone and flexibility.
So the stress of being stretched in 15 directions isn't just making you feel bad. It may literally be stiffening your arteries.
That's a fair reading of the evidence, yes.
Okay, I need a moment, because that's a lot.
It is. But here's where we pivot to the hopeful part, because there is genuinely strong evidence that arterial stiffness is modifiable.
Yes, let's go there. And actually, before we do, I want to ask our listeners a quick favor. If this episode is making you think differently about your heart health, please like and subscribe to the Wellness Rhythm Show. It costs you nothing, and it helps us keep bringing you exactly this kind of deep, useful content.
Appreciated. So let's talk interventions. Exercise is probably the most powerful tool we have. And I mean specifically aerobic exercise. A 2014 meta-analysis in the American Journal of Hypertension, reviewing data from over 5,000 participants, found that regular aerobic training significantly reduced aortic PWV compared to sedentary controls.
And we're not talking about running marathons.
No, moderate intensity, Brisk walking, cycling, swimming, 3 to 5 sessions per week, 30 to 45 minutes. The consistency matters more than the intensity.
I can work with that. I genuinely can. Because I've been doing 30-minute walks at lunch, and I always feel vaguely guilty that I'm not doing more.
You shouldn't. That is physiologically meaningful activity.
Okay, what about diet? Because I feel like this is where it gets complicated.
It does, and I want to be careful not to oversimplify. But the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet both have supporting evidence for improving vascular function. A 2018 study in the British Journal of Nutrition found that higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet was associated with lower arterial stiffness in middle-aged adults.
The common thread being less processed food, more whole foods, more omega-3s, more fiber.
And less added sugar. There's growing evidence from researchers like Dr. Robert Lustig at UCSF that excess dietary fructose contributes to metabolic dysfunction that directly affects vascular health.
Here's the thing, though, and this is where I want to push back just a little, David, because I think sometimes when we list all these interventions, exercise and diet and stress management and sleep, it can feel completely overwhelming for someone who's already exhausted.
That's a fair and important challenge. And honestly, the research on behavior change supports your point. Dr. B.J. Fogg at Stanford, through his Tiny Habits methodology, has shown that smaller, stackable behaviors outperform dramatic overhauls in terms of long-term adherence.
So the ask isn't transform your entire life. The ask is, what's one thing you can do this week that your arteries would thank you for?
Precisely. And I'd suggest that one thing might be a consistent 30-minute walk, because the evidence for that single behavior improving vascular elasticity is genuinely robust.
What about sleep? Because I know I'm not alone in the terrible sleep department.
Yes, the American Heart Association added sleep to its cardiovascular health checklist, the Life's Essential 8 framework in 2022. Poor sleep is associated with increased sympathetic nervous system activation, which raises blood pressure and contributes to arterial stiffness over time.
So the sleep deprivation that so many of us treat as a badge of honor is quietly stiffening our arteries.
Quietly and cumulatively, yes.
Let's address the skeptics for a moment, because I can imagine someone listening thinking, okay, but my doctor checks my cholesterol and says I'm fine. Why should I worry about something that isn't even measured at my checkup?
Right, and that's not an unreasonable position. Cholesterol, particularly LDL particle number and ApoB testing, remains clinically important. Dr. Peter Attia, who has written extensively on longevity medicine, argues for combining traditional lipid markers with emerging markers like PWV and coronary artery calcium, scoring for a fuller picture.
So it's not either or.
Not at all. It's that cholesterol is one chapter of the story. Arterial stiffness is another chapter that often goes unread.
And if someone wants to actually get their arterial stiffness checked, what do they do?
They can ask their cardiologist specifically. Some preventive cardiology clinics and longevity medicine practices offer PWV testing. There are also consumer-grade devices emerging, though their accuracy varies. The validated clinical standard remains the sphygmocore system or similar applanation tonometry devices.
So it might take some advocacy. You might have to ask for it.
You might, and that's a conversation worth having.
Okay, so let's bring it home. If there is one thing I want our listeners to walk away with today, it's this. Your cholesterol number is not the whole story of your heart health. Your arteries' elasticity matters enormously, and the single most accessible thing you can do starting this week is consistent, moderate aerobic exercise. That's it, start there.
And I'd add, don't wait for your doctor to bring this up. Do your own reading. Ask about pulse wave velocity. Look into the Life's Essential 8 framework from the American Heart Association. You are allowed to be curious about your own cardiovascular system.
Y'all, your arteries have been working for you every single second of your life. This is us working for them. Thanks for spending this time with us on the Wellness Rhythm Show.
Quite right. And remember, flexible arteries are apparently a personality trait worth cultivating.
The show is part of the VoxCrea.ai system. If you want a show like this for your organization without building it yourself,
go to voxcreel.ai and request a sample episode.